Self-styled Guru Rampal's refusal to give himself up to the police finally leading to a massive showdown that played out all through today outside Rampal's Hisar ashram. Hisar turned into a war zone with pitched battles being fought between the police and Rampal's private army. But at the end of the day, the police had to call off operations while Rampal, even as we speak, still remains holed up inside the ashram. Ankit Tyagi was there through the day. He brings you this report.
Warzone, Hisar. A severe police crackdown on Rampal's unyielding supporters. The tense countdown to the crackdown began early.
Situation here today also is tense. Since morning, heavy deployment of police force. More than 5,000 policemen have gone inside.
At 10 minutes past noon, Haryana Police unleashed Operation Clear Out.
Even when I'm speaking.
First, the women supporters were dragged away, some even by male cops. Then tear gas shells were fired to break the supporters' resolve. The blowback from inside the ashram was intense. Stones, petrol bombs from Rampal supporters perched 50 feet high up on the boundary walls. Caught in the crossfire was the media, attacked for doing its job. After 2 hours of pitched battles, cops fell back, failing to thwart an attack from Rampal's private army. By this time, 100 had been injured from both sides, but Rampal was nowhere close to being nabbed.
I'm right inside where the action took place in front of the Satlok ashram, bringing you updates on headlines today as and when the action takes place.
As MHA intervened to seek a report, the heat from the operation zone triggered a political blame game.
सीएम साहब और पूरा हरियाणा का प्रशासन और माननीय मुख्यमंत्री पूरी घटनाक्रम पर उनकी नजर है, पल पल की जानकारी उनको मिल रही है
और इसको वर्ष ना हो सिचुएशन, बैठ के कोई ना कोई रास्ता निकालना चाहिए दोनों।
पूरे प्रदेश का पुलिस प्रशासन एक व्यक्ति को कोर्ट के सामने हाजिर नहीं कर सकता। ये देख के आम लोगों के मन में क्या छवि बनेगी?
In the meantime, another front had opened at Delhi Jantar Mantar.
The protesters here want to breach these barricades, want to walk all the way to the Supreme Court, which is about 2 kilometers from Jantar Mantar. The police here in absolutely no mood to allow that. What we are expecting is going to be a face-off right now.
परवाड़ा में अगर कार्रवाई नहीं रुकी तो हम अपना जीवन समाप्त कर लेंगे, लेकिन हम प्रशासन के खिलाफ और सरकार के खिलाफ लड़ाई नहीं।
At 3 p.m., cops broke through the main gate despite stiff resistance. This was ground zero at 4:30 p.m. Gate broken, cops on standby for fresh charge. An hour after the scheduled time, the DGP and the Home Secretary spoke.
आज समाप्त होता है, कल समाप्त होता है, मैं कोई समय सीमा नहीं देना चाहूंगा, लेकिन समाप्त तभी होगा जब अभियुक्त रामपाल को हम गिरफ्तार करके माननीय न्यायालय के समक्ष उपस्थित कर देंगे।
A sleepy town, some 150 kilometers from Delhi, had seen it all in a day. But even 6 hours after the operation, what wasn't seen was this man brought to book by the state and put behind bars. Bureau Report, headlines today.
Well, in the crossfire between the Haryana Police and Rampal's private army were women and children and even journalists out in the field reporting the story. 5 of our own journalists of Headlines Today and Aaj Tak were pushed and attacked away by baton-wielding Haryana policemen who had clearly lost complete focus. Will the Chief Minister ensure the guilty policemen don't get away?
मैंने बैग टांग रखा था, तो यहाँ पे मेरे को मारा है।
Sanjeev Kumar, cameraman. Nitin Jain, correspondent.
सबसे पहला टारगेट मीडिया को किया गया।
अशोक सिंगल, नेशनल अफेयर्स एडिटर, आज तक। किशन कुमार, कैमरामैन। Shakil Ahmed, cameraman. TV Today crew under attack in Hisar. Equipment damaged, mobiles snatched, and journalists beaten up by Haryana Police without any provocation. But these bruises tell a story of a mindless, brutal crackdown that had clearly lost its focus. With Ankit Tyagi in Hisar, Shujoy, Headlines Today.
Want to go straight across to headlines today is Ankit Tyagi, who's still staking it out right outside the ashram and has been bringing us reports right through the day of the violence that has taken place there. Ankit, another day goes by with Rampal still holed up inside the ashram. He spends another night as a free man, willfully disobeying the law. What are we expecting to see happen tomorrow? Is it going to be more of the same, or does the police have a plan?
Shiv, now one thing is very clear, that this will end, and this will end in a very bloody way. Because now the police has decided that they are going to start their operations tomorrow in the morning. And now the kind of people, those who are left inside, are the hardened supporters.
Yes.
The only problem is that in the evening also we saw there were many who wanted to come out, but the armed supporters of this government, they are in fact stopping them from coming out. This is what the problem is between the law, between the police and this Baba. There are many innocent people, those who have been caught. Many of them were not even told. In fact, I can give you the latest that we have got, in fact, from the ground, that women, children and men,
yes.
The families were in fact kept separately. They were segregated as soon as they came into the ashram. In different enclosures they were kept. Not much information was given to them. All of them were misled, and suddenly they found themselves in between the stone pelting from the ashram side and the cops, those who were on the other side beating everybody black and blue.
Right.
In fact, right now at the station ship there are about 150 women. Those who were the part of the chain that was outside. All of them stranded at the station, police trying to put them in various trains and send them away to
Right.
Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. Many of them still crying that their husbands and their children are still inside the ashram.
But do we know, Ankit, very, very quickly, do we know that if the police has a fresh strategy tomorrow? Because they've utterly failed today.
Absolutely. Despite their full force, despite everything that they tried in the 5 hours that the operation went on, they could not even go inside the ashram. They have managed to break the wall, but they could not go inside. Tomorrow we have been told that they are going to crush it much
Right.
more firmly. More policemen will be deployed, and this time they are expecting a resistance from the other side. But the officers are saying that they will, no matter what, tomorrow Rampal would be brought out of that ashram.
Well, it's an embarrassment for the Haryana Police. It's an embarrassment for the entire country that a man wanted for crimes to be tried refuses to obey the law and with impunity remains holed up inside his ashram with hundreds of his supporters and devotees as a human shield. Thanks, Ankit, for getting us that report. Moving on now. On this day, very few will know that 52 years ago, one of the greatest and bravest last stands played out in the dizzy heights of Ladakh. It was during the 1962 war when just 120 Indian soldiers faced 5,000 Chinese troops, engaging them with unimaginable courage during the 1962 war through that freezing November night in Chushul in Ladakh, managing to hold them off, killing 1,400 of them and fighting till the last bullet was fired. For all its glory though, the Battle of Rezangla is a story not many Indians actually know. But we're happy to report that all that could actually change. In fact, the legendary battle could soon be in school textbooks as an example of courage against the most phenomenal odds. If it does happen, we here at Headlines Today would like to think that we had something to do with it. On Tuesday, when editor Strategic Affairs Gaurav Sawant tweeted to HRD Minister Smriti Irani suggesting that the battle be considered for school curricula, the minister replied, agreeing to consider it and follow up. We're happy to report that the army, which has fought for years for recognition of its tale of valor, was delighted at the prospect. We can also confirm that the army will be supplying all necessary information to the HRD minister, who will then process the possibility of the Battle of Rezangla being part of future Indian textbooks.
The Battle of Rizangla is the story of honor, courage and sacrifice. It is bravery beyond the call of duty in the line of fire. In case the Human Resource and Development Minister Smriti Irani actually succeeds in making this a part of school curriculum, it will continue to inspire and motivate youngsters for generations to come. With cameraman Sanjay Khan in Delhi, Gaurav Sawant for Headlines Today.
And I can promise you that we here at Headlines Today will keep a track of that story and update you on this. I'm going to hand you over now to Managing Editor Rahul Kanwal, who's in Melbourne and who's been tracking all the developments on the final day of Prime Minister Narendra Modi down under. It's over to Rahul.
The Prime Minister's whirlwind multi-city tour of Australia finally drawing to a close. His last event was held here at the beautiful Melbourne Cricket Ground, which will host the finals of the World Cup of Cricket next year. The day began for Narendra Modi in Canberra, where he addressed a joint session of the Australian Parliament. Modi spoke self-assuredly in English. 5 crucial agreements were signed between leaders and representatives of India and Australia. Let's take you through some of the key highlights of the Prime Minister's speech in Canberra.
Mr. Prime Minister, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to address the House.
A historic moment as Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the Australian Parliament.
Congratulations to you and the people of Australia.
A rare honour bestowed on him by the Australian government. A jovial Modi began his speech on a light note, praising the nation.
We are impressed by Australian speed as you charmed by the Indian spin until, of course, Shenwan came along. Prime Minister Abbott's way of short-fronting you.
Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to address the Australian Parliament and the third world leader to have been invited besides Chinese President Xi Jinping and British Prime Minister David Cameron.
I'm the third head of the government you are listening to this week. I do not know how you are doing this. Maybe this is Prime Minister Abbott's way of short-fronting you.
Topping the agenda of Prime Minister Modi's speech was the black spot of expanding terror in the world. Modi calling for renewed global strategy and cooperation on terror.
We need a comprehensive global strategy for a global problem. It will require closer security cooperation, but even more, a policy of no distinction between terrorist groups, of discrimination between nations. We see Australia foremost partner in the region.
Backing the ideals of democracy followed by the two nations, the Prime Minister called in for deeper bilateral ties, calling Australia a vital partner in India's quest for progress and prosperity.
So we stand together at a moment of enormous opportunity and great responsibility. I see a great future of prosperity partnership between India and Australia. India's development.
Modi's Made in India pitch was not far behind, proposing that India becomes the hub for Australia's skilled manpower and manufacturing needs.
India will be the answer to your search for new economic opportunities and your desires to diversify your global economic engagement. your source for world-class skills at home or for a manufacturing location abroad.
Prime Minister Modi's speech expressing his outlook and desire for strengthening cultural, socio-economic and security ties at the Parliament of the Commonwealth surely seems to have impressed our Asia-Pacific counterpart. For the signing of 5 key pacts between the two nations seemed like a positive start. Bureau Report, headlines today.
Over the past 4 days, a great sense of bonhomie and camaraderie seems to have developed between the Prime Ministers of India and Australia. Tony Abbott, in fact, narrated an interesting story about the free trade agreement negotiations with India. The Australian Prime Minister said that he told the Indian Prime Minister that let's sign an FTA like we have with China over the next 12 months. The Indian Prime Minister replied saying we can do it sooner. Tony Abbott says he suggested 6 months. The Indian Prime Minister then said, no, we can do it sooner, Tony. Why don't we do it in 3? Tony Abbott then said that if there's anyone who can move the Indian bureaucracy, it has to be Narendra Modi. The Prime Ministers of India and Australia unveiled the Border Gavaskar Trophy. The India-Australia bilateral tour starts in a couple of weeks from now. And after that, the World Cup of Cricket. Here at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, there were several cricket legends of years gone by, both Indian and Australian, who were present as both the captains engaged in a dose of cricketing diplomacy.
Narendra Modi scored another big hit on his Australian tour when he visited the iconic Melbourne Cricket Stadium. From Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev to Stuart Clark, Indian and Australian cricketing legends were there at the Prime Minister's reception.
पंतप्रधान जी से मिलके बड़ी खुशी हुई जिस तरह से उन्होंने क्रिकेट में दिलचस्पी दिखाई और वो तो पहले गुजरात क्रिकेट एसोसिएशन के प्रेसिडेंट भी थे.
Excited Australian Indians lined up outside the stadium hoping to catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister.
I love him.
If we get a chance to meet him, I think it's all worth it.
I don't know, he's just a bit different to all other politicians who always talk about religion, caste and stuff.
I take the day off for Modi. He's my hero.
At the stadium, it was cricket that scored over diplomacy.
To speak to you at the historic ground comes close to scoring a century here. This memory will stay with me forever. It's touched my heart.
The Prime Minister and his Australian counterpart also unveiled the trophy for World Cup 2015 and ended the day with a candid selfie. With Rahul Kaval in Melbourne.